Does it ever feel like life's passing you by? Or maybe you wish that someone would reach out to you to hang out? Or maybe you wish that you had more intentional friendships and relationships in your life, or maybe you struggle with being intentional yourself. Well, today's episode is all about being an intentional friend and having intentional relationships. My hope is that today's episode will equip you to have more intentionality in all those areas of your life and help you to thrive within your own relationships and friendships. Welcome to the Trailblazer Talks podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Hope Wilson. This podcast is designed to encourage and equip you to be a trailblazer right where you are, to help you discover your God-given purpose and bring you talks each week that will inspire you to do what you were made for. Each week, we will walk through different topics to help you grow in your life, career, and leadership. My hope is that you'll become poised for purpose and walk in that daily. I hope each week you'll feel more equipped to be a trailblazer right where you are. So let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome back for season 3 of the Trailblazer Talks podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Hope Wilson, and I am so excited to be back with you guys. I know that it has been quite a break since our last season, and I apologize for that. We had a lot going on and also had some new vision for how we want to structure the podcast, and just life happened. But I'm so glad to be back, and I hope that you'll continue to join me as we release more and more episodes that I feel are going to help you be a trailblazer right where you are. So last season, if you remember, we did a structure where it was a lot of guest episodes and we had a lot of really amazing conversations. It was more conversation based, but this season we are going to be doing more workshop style and series type of content. So you can expect to have different series where we have different topics we cover. Like the current series is going to be about intentionality and living an intentional life. The series after that is going to be about church and church hurt and how we can recover from all of that and how we can be part of the church and what church was really intended to be. So that will be the next one. And there's going to be so many more amazing series coming up. And I will bring different guests into some of those series where I feel like it would be a good fit to bring wisdom into those series, or perhaps just have someone who's an expert in that field to be able to encourage you guys and speak from their own experience. So I'm excited for this new update of how we are going to structure things and how it's going to really be kind of a workshop style to pour into you guys and make sure that you're getting the things that you need to get to be equipped in the areas that you guys feel that you need the most equipping in. And we're going to continue to release episodes every Thursday, so make sure that you tune in every Thursday. And something new that we're doing since we changed the structure of the podcast is we're going to start taking blog guest submissions on our website. So on the blog, the Trailblazer Journals, which is the kind of overarching platform that we have that the Trailblazer Talks rolls up under, we are going to be having guest submissions where people can submit blogs that they want to have featured that meet the guidelines that we have outlined on the website. So more to come on that very soon, but just know that that's coming. So if you have a passion for writing, or if you know somebody that is a trailblazer right where they are, we're going to have kind of a nomination type of platform as well, so that we can highlight different trailblazers and what they're doing in their own communities. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be coming up in the next few weeks on the Trailblazer Journals, but I'm excited for that. I think it's going to be so beneficial and really help build the community so that people can see what others are doing and be inspired by that. So without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. This week, I wanted to talk to you guys all about living intentionally. If you've been around here for any amount of time, you know that this is something that I live and breathe and that I'm really passionate about, because I feel like it's one of the most important things that we can do in life. It's so important to be intentional and to live an intentional life, because it affects not only how we look on life, but how others view life and how we affect others. And if you aren't familiar with what it means to be intentional, or maybe you just never even heard the definition, maybe you've heard that buzzword thrown around, but you don't know the definition of intentional. Intentional means to be done on purpose or to be deliberate. And I think that that's one of the things with today's world that is so hard, is that a lot of people lack intentionality. The way that our culture is structured today is it's all about me, me, me. And that doesn't really lend for us to be super intentional. When it comes to friendships and relationships, oftentimes it's about what's the next best thing I can do, what's, the best offer that I have, what's the best thing for me. And while we do want to do things that are good for us, we also want to think about other people and be intentional with how we relate to other people. We want to be kind and considerate, and we want to make sure that we are not just living haphazardly or living in a way that hurts other people. And I think it's important because I know in my own experience, there's times where I may have been hosting an event, or maybe I invited people over to my house or got invited to dinner plans, and last minute someone would cancel because something better came up. And I know personally for me, that really hurt. It really hurt that I wasn't thought of more highly, that I wasn't more important than whatever this other thing was that came up. I also know that through the pandemic, it's been really hard with intentional relationships and friendships because of just the restrictions that we've had. And it's also caused us to kind of keep to ourselves a bit more. And so I think we all need a refresher of how we can be more intentional and some tips for that, because I know that it's caused a lot of friendships to be strained, and it's caused a lot of introspectiveness where maybe we just spend a lot of time by ourselves, or maybe we don't realize that we're kind of isolating or not hanging out with people like we used to. So I think it's important for us to learn how to be an intentional friend, family member, all of the above, and just be a more intentional person. So I wanted to talk today more around friendship and relationships, because I feel like that's a big area where I know in my own life I've struggled with, and I know that many other people struggle with this too. And whenever it comes to friendships and relationships, no matter what those look like, I think we all can say that we need to be more intentional. We need to be more intentional with how we communicate with one another, with our expectations for one another, with just how we live our life and how we interact and build those relationships and friendships. So I wanted to give you guys just a few tips that I've found helpful in my own life, because I feel like that can really help you with just some easy ways to be more intentional in your own life. So one of the ways that I try to be intentional is that I like to set reminders in my phone for just about everything, but especially important events or birthdays or things that I know for sure I'm going to want to remember for the different people in my life. So whether it's an anniversary or a birthday or just a big event that they've told me is coming up, I set a reminder in my phone so that I can make sure to text them or call them on that day or send them a card, because I know how important that is to me whenever people remember the important things about my life. I value and love communication so much that I really want to make sure that I do that with other people. Because I remember one year I was not on social media and I ended up missing a friend's birthday because I didn't know her birthday off the top of my head. Life got busy. I didn't have social media to remind me because I was taking a break from it. And I felt so bad that I missed her birthday. And I realized it only a few days later when I finally got back on social media and we had just become friends, but I felt terrible that I didn't know it was her birthday and totally let the day pass me by. So from then on out, I always ask my friends, what is your birthday? And I immediately put it in my phone, and I try to set reminders so that I can be intentional in those areas. Or if you know someone has a graduation coming up, or if you know that they have some important event in their life, maybe they bought a house, maybe they're getting married, or whatever it is, I try to make sure that I write down and set reminders for all of those things so that I don't miss out and that I can be intentional to celebrate them in those moments. Something else that I would love to recommend is don't back out on plans unless you really, really have to. I know so often life is fluid, things come up, we have to be flexible, but I can tell you from my own experience that if I have plans with someone and they end up having to back out last minute, or maybe they forgot that they had something, and I know I've had to do this before too, where I didn't realize I was double committed or something like that, but I try really hard to make sure that I don't let that happen. And it's totally understandable if someone's sick or not feeling good, but if you have plans with someone, I would try your best to stick to those plans because it really means a lot to the other person. It means a lot to not be bailed on last minute. It means a lot to feel like they are important to you and that they are the most important thing you have to do in that moment. And it also just means a lot to feel like you're not not being, cast off to the side or being forgotten. So I would highly recommend trying to stick to your plans whenever you make plans with someone, unless something crazy comes up. Something that kind of goes along with that is to mean what you say and say what you mean. I know for me, that means a lot in relationships and friendships. Whenever people are true to their word, they mean what they say what they mean. They don't just say, oh, hey, yeah, let's hang out, and then they never make plans to do it. They don't say things like, oh yeah, I'll send you that thing, and then they never do it. It's one thing to be forgetful and things like that, but I think part of being intentional is creating systems and creating things in your life that help you to not be as forgetful, so that you can be more intentional and stick to your word, because it really means a lot when people stick to their word and are meaningful with that. Something else that I like to do is setting reminders to call and text or check in on people. I know that I'm always trying to find ways to connect with people and be more intentional, especially if I meet new people. But even if it's someone that I've been friends with for a really long time, it can be really easy to lose touch. And it can be easy to sit back and just say, oh, well, I'm just going to wait until they reach out to me and see if they reach out to me. But I've realized that the more intentional I am, it also encourages other people to be intentional. And so I try to set reminders to call or check in or text people that I maybe haven't heard from in a while. I will also cold call people. I know that's not as popular these days to cold call somebody, but if there's a friend that I haven't heard from in a while, I'll just cold call them and see if they answer and just see if they have time to chat and check in on them. And I have no problem with being the first to reach out. I also get discouraged in this a lot because I am usually the first person to reach out to people to schedule stuff, but I also realize that not everyone thinks to reach out or whatever. So I think you have to be the friend that you want. So if you want friends that reach out, you need to be the friend that reaches out. And if you want to get together with someone, I wouldn't just sit by and let life happen to you. I would be intentional and check in and say, hey, when's a good time that you would have to hang out? I would really love to get together. Another fun thing that I love to do is to send cards in the mail. That's something I've been trying to do more of this year because I know how fun it is to get a card myself. I love getting cards in the mail. And so I try to send cards to friends and find fun, cute cards that I can send because I know how meaningful it is to me. And who doesn't love a good snail mail? Obviously, we get enough junk mail in the mail, but whenever we get something in the mail that's meaningful, I know I cherish it and I hold on to it for a really long time. And another way that I would recommend just being intentional in your friendships and relationships before I get into more of the relationship specific ones is making sure that you are fully present whenever you're together. It can be so easy to just be on your phones or be scrolling social media or checking things, but whenever I'm with people, I really try my best, even if it's someone I've known for a super long time, I try my best to be fully present. I try not to check my phone unless I really have to, or unless we are both needing to check our phones for something. I try to be as intentional as I can with my time with the people I'm with, because that's the one thing that you don't get back. You don't get that time back. And I know for me, if someone is constantly on their phone while we're together, it makes me feel like I'm not that important to that person, that there's whatever's on their phone must be more important, that they need to be on their phone. So I would try to be fully present when you can and try to make sure that they have your full attention. So those are ways that you can be intentional with your friendships and relationships, but I also want to talk about ways to be intentional in your relationships in your life. And maybe this is, a romantic relationship, maybe it's just family relationships or any other relationship that you have in your life. But some things that I have found helpful with being intentional is intentionally talking about the things that are good or not good. I know in romantic relationships, there comes times where things bother you, or maybe you are too afraid to talk about something or whatever it may be, but it's really important that you are intentional with having those conversations. Don't let it boil over for a really long time. Don't just let it sit forever. Make sure that you intentionally talk about those things. And another thing I would say is don't be passive aggressive. If something's bothering you, just be straightforward and be honest. That's intentional and that's kind to the other person. And I would also make sure that you're having intentional quality time together with no phones. This kind of goes with what I've said a few minutes ago about being fully present, but I think this is especially important in relationships as well, to make sure that you have those intentional times together where you don't have your phones, where maybe you're on a date or maybe you're sitting on the couch together. I know that there's times where we kind of are just chilling and we're going to be on our phones and stuff like that too. And that's totally fine. I think just make sure that you have quality time together where you're really just focused on each other as well. A few other things that have helped me as well with being intentional is to seek to understand. Sometimes we don't understand what the other person may be dealing with or going through. And if we just assume things, that's not being very intentional. We have to be intentional to seek to understand, to see what's going on in their life, what are they maybe dealing with, and how can we help them. And another way, kind of goes along with the whole communication theme, is respond, don't react. As much as possible, I know it can be hard, but if you can just take a step back when you're in the middle of something and maybe there's a disagreement or an argument, make sure that you try to respond and figure out what it is that's really going on. What's the deeper level here? Be intentional, try to be the bigger person instead of just reacting. And I would say, along with the communication, make sure that you have clear expectations around your communication. I know sometimes whenever we're in a relationship or with family or whoever, sometimes we don't have clear expectations around how often we'll communicate, when they can expect to hear from us, and all of that kind of stuff. But it's really important to kind of talk through those things. It might seem silly, but really it's intentional and it helps you down the road to make sure that you both are on the same page and you know when you'll expect to hear from each other, how much you expect to text, all of those types of things to avoid conflict later on. And the last thing I would recommend, and I think this is just a fun one, it kind of goes with the whole sending cards in the mail type of thing, but just send each other little happies, whether it's a funny GIF or GIF, however you say that, whether it's just a cute little voice message, or maybe it's just having a letter that you send to them or anything like that, just something to make their day and to be intentional, to remind them what you think of them, how you feel about them, and all of those things. So I would definitely recommend that, and recommend just really being intentional in how you treat other people and how you treat the people who are most special to you. So I hope that was helpful. Next week, we're going to talk even more about being intentional and how you can live an intentional life and what that looks like at home, what that looks like in your job, and all of those different things. So I hope that you're excited about this. I hope this is helpful and helps you live a more productive and intentional life so that you can have a happier life. And also, if you want to be first to know whenever an episode is coming out, be sure to join our email list. There's going to be a link in the show notes, so you can make sure to sign up there so that you can get these sent straight to your inbox every week and that you don't miss out on a show. Also, make sure that you're subscribed wherever you listen, whether it's on Apple or Spotify. That's where we'll be, and that'll be the best way to also make sure you get episodes first. And if you ever have any show notes that you missed, you can find those at the trailblazertalkspodcast.com. And also, I always love to connect with you guys. So if you want to connect with me, I'm on Instagram at Court Hope Wilson, or you can find me on my website. It's just been refreshed and it'll be live very soon, but it's CourtneyHopeWilson.com. As always, I love hanging out with you guys. I hope this is beneficial, and I hope it helps you to be equipped on your journey as you become a trailblazer right where you are. I'll see you next week.